Hello, everyone. We are here doing chapter 18 on a teacher's guide to trauma. Chapter 18 is going to be about do not use point systems. I am Kaylee Hand, and I'm one of the early childhood mental health consultants with the San Luis Valley Early Childhood Council.
And I'm Deb Benali, and I also am an early childhood mental health consultant with the Early Childhood Council in the San Luis Valley. And it's great to be back.
Class-wide point systems make me feel defeated. And individual point systems are very threatening to me. Like I said, this chapter is going to be about the ideas of point systems.
Students with trauma often have a negative worldview. Essentially, that means that they have trouble seeing the good in things, especially themselves. Often children with trauma have a sense that the trauma they suffered is somehow their fault and they deserve it. It is the lens through which they see everything else. They believe they caused the trauma, they deserve the trauma. So through that lens, that negative lens, is how they view the world.
Dr. Sadin tells the following story about her son, Theo. When Theo was about 4 years old, he decided that his favorite activity was pulling on my drapes. They were elaborate things with rigging, cords, and hundreds of dollars of material. He would walk over to them, grab a hold, and pull. If I walked into the room, he would smile. I later learned that a smile in that setting is known as the orphanage will smile. Often, children who spend time in orphanages will smile when they feel uncomfortable, scared, worried, or threatened.
I went through the traditional responses one would use with a young child who pulls on drapes. Mommy doesn't want you to pull in her drapes, I said, while gently removing his hand from the drapes. Then, Theo, stop pulling on the drapes. Then, Theo, if you pull on those drapes one more time, you will go to timeout. Then, on recommendation from my neighbor, who was a very good mom to 4 children, hey, Theo, look at this shiny object over here away from the drapes. Nothing worked.
I spent many years as a special education teacher in a self-contained class for children with emotional and behavioral concerns. At this time, I was an assistant principal. I was an expert on behavior modification systems. So I cut a piece of construction paper in half. Theo, of course, picked out the color. I purchased large stickers, which Theo picked out. I explained in simple language that I would give Theo a sticker to put on his paper when he did what he was supposed to do.
When he filled the paper with stickers, we would go to the dollar store and pick out a prize. We taped the paper to the fridge near the bottom where he could reach. We practiced. He put his toys away. I gave him a sticker. A few days later, he was back to pulling on the drapes. I went through my repertoire and told him that he would get a sticker if he stopped pulling on the drapes.
And he pulled on the drapes. He pulled really hard on the drapes. I became worried that the rigging for the drapes would come out of the wall and fall on his head. He kept pulling. At this point, I was so angry that I walked away. This is not recommended, as he could have gotten very hurt. But I was pushed past my limit. So I went into the kitchen to pour some coffee, and I heard a crash from the other room.
I went in and he was standing there with the curtains at his feet, unharmed. A few minutes later, he went into the kitchen with a sticker and said, "Mommy, do I?" I said, "No, no, you don't." He looked up at me, scrunched up his little face, pulled the sticker chart off the refrigerator, put it in his mouth, chewed it, and swallowed. There was a minute where I worried about the amount of glue he had just ingested and whether that was good for him. My next thought was, I'm going to need a new plan.
Theo's pulling on the drapes was a result of dysregulation. He wanted to engage with his mom, and he had no model for doing that. He was not hearing the same music his mother did. We talked about that a few chapters back, of not hearing the same song. Theo was searching for connection and a response. He knew pulling on the drapes would get a response.
There are many reasons why he pulled those drapes off the wall. None of those reasons was that he wanted to hurt Melissa or make her angry. It was not about her at all.
He was a long way from understanding her feelings and that he had some control over them. Pulling on the drapes was not a choice for Theo. As such, he was unable to choose not to pull on them so that he could get a sticker. We talked about not being able to expect more from children than what their brain is capable of doing.
Theo's middle school had a school-wide behavior plan. Students would earn points for breaking rules, and certain level of points would result in a loss of privileges. Students could earn tickets for performing well to go towards pizza or prizes. Sorry, I must be hungry. I almost said pizza. Well, to go towards prizes at the end of the semester. Theo had an incident with the point system. He ultimately told the assistant principal how stupid it was.
Theo was threatened by the point system. He was so sure that he would continue to earn points. His feeling of worthlessness interfered with his ability to be motivated towards appropriate behavior to avoid the points. Point systems told Theo his feelings of worthlessness were true.
Mm-hmm. Theo's amygdala was in overdrive. The possibility of failing the point system created the same level of fear that a person without trauma feels when they are falling out of a window. Dr. Sadin told the assistant principal about the drape story. Theo was trying to fix what was broke with the point system. The assistant principal and Theo came up with a plan that would erase points for positive behavior.
With time, Theo's behaviors improved. He actually ended up developing a bond with Mr. Levy, the assistant principal. And by 8th grade, Theo had very few points and was a fairly positive member of the school community. He went from feeling worthless and getting points that confirmed that to learning that he could do positive things.
And this is our contact information. We also have 2 other members of our team, Kristen Love and Catherine Trujillo, who are not present today. So you were stuck with Kaylee and myself. This is how you can get in touch with us. We're welcome any feedback or questions that you have.
And I'm just going to throw it out there real quick because there wasn't a nice little segue at the end, but as we learned, there's a lot of stress that can go on to point systems for children who have trauma, as well as children who don't. And there are ways to offset that. Like the assistant principal found an individualized plan to work with Theo to support the school's overall system, as well as supporting Theo individually. And I think that's a really positive message to learn, is that even if your school has a school-wide system, there is still wiggle room to adapt it to what's going to work best for individual children.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Sorry, just my own little 2 cents to throw in there.
Oh, that's great. It's great to have that information.
And, as always, here is our reference, Teacher's Guide to Trauma. Wonderful book if you guys are interested in diving into the read, but also that is what we are here to do, is help explain this book chapter by chapter. So we are very close to the end, and it's been wonderful doing this with you guys.
See you at our next video.
Bye, everyone.